I think I have a very inbuilt sense of justice. I just have always had that burning desire within me to see justice and to right the wrongs. My name's Craig Watson. I come from near Edinburgh. I was a police officer for over 30 years, most of which was a detective. Started off investigating serious crime, housebreakings, robberies, drug dealing, stabbings, moving on to investigating many murders and unexplained or suspicious deaths. And then I moved into work in the covert world, doing surveillance for many years. And then finally, for the last 10 years of my career, I investigated serious crimes against women and children. So being a detective, it's a calling. You have to love doing it, and I did love doing it. But it has its toll. It's relentless. You're seeing death on a daily basis. You're seeing destruction in people's lives. It can be difficult. You need to accept that we are there to find the truth that's already happened. We need to keep an open mind. We need to cast the net wide to bring in as much information and evidence as we possibly can, and then we systematically go through it piece by piece, and we put our different possibilities to the evidence to work out what fits, and eventually the truth will emerge from it, so that we know that what has happened, because of the medical evidence, because of the scientific evidence, because of eyewitness evidence, that we can satisfactorily say that that is what happened. Yes, there may be some doubts. Yes, there may be some gaps, but as long as they're not reasonable doubts, then we've got a strong case. There are many factors that motivated me to look at the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus. I can't put my finger on any particular one. There was just so many. My life was going well. I was in a job that I loved. I had got to a point where I had done everything I wanted to in my career. I had a good life outside of the police. I had no interest whatsoever in church or the Bible or faith or anything spiritual. And I think sometimes we just take stock of our life. And this was just happened to be a moment where I just thought, I'm pretty happy with life, but everything is fairly meaningless at times. And what is the purpose? And if there's nothing after life, what is going on? So I really started to fear death. I'd thought about death before. I dealt with death on a daily basis. I put my life on the line for my colleagues and for the public. But I just started to fear death. And it drove me to start asking questions about, what is this all about? What is the purpose for my life? And I got to the point where I decided I have all these skills as a detective, and I can investigate events that have happened in the past. Why don't I use these skills to look at the one thing that Christians claim to be true, and that is that Jesus Christ lived, died on a cross, and then was raised again 3 days later. And that seemed, first of all, to be quite ludicrous, and I was very sceptical. But I made a promise to myself that I would follow the evidence, because that's what we do in any investigation. And I started to look at it, and as I looked at the four different versions that we have in the Bible of Jesus' life, they are absolutely packed with detail which rings true. There are sources outside the Bible, non-Christian sources, which back up that Jesus lived and that Christians claim that he died and rose again. And you can do these with the Gospels and take them all the way back so they can be dated within the lifetime of people who were alive after the resurrection. Now that's a really convincing part to me, because the absence of any contrary evidence is really quite significant as well, where you don't have lots of people saying that just simply didn't happen. I concluded that the resurrection is true. I think there's overwhelming evidence, and I continue to look at the evidence, you know, on an ongoing basis, as I would with any case. And I've found it to be true. I've put my faith in the Jesus Christ that died and rose again. And I've found power to change my life, to deal with the guilt that I had. I thought I was the good guy. I was in the police. I'm the one that locks up bad guys. I didn't think I had a problem, but actually all of us are not perfect. But we've got a God who's made a way for us to be at one with Him, to have a relationship with Him. And this burning desire of justice that I had inside of me, that was all became clear when I looked at the crucifixion and I saw the resurrection and I saw this was the punishment that I deserved. And I just started to have a completely different outlook. I was more compassionate towards people. I had a peace that I just could not explain, that I never had and I didn't realise was possible. I see hope for people where many people see hopelessness. One of my jobs was to monitor and manage the risk posed by sex offenders in the community. These are the most loathed people in society, the lowest of the low. And yet, I moved from loathing these people to seeing that actually they were made in God's image. Now that doesn't mean to say I have to agree with what they've done or I approve it in any way, far from it. What they've done is abhorrent. But I just began to see them with the dignity and respect that they deserve. And in many ways, when you're dealing with people like that, they start to respond to people acting and tell you things, sometimes things that they don't want to tell you. And I would have no hesitation in putting them back to jail if they were too much of a risk, if they'd commit an offence. So that was my role to do. But I certainly saw people in a different light. I know how important the truth is. It's certainly important to me, and to have investigated to such an extent and to know that it's true